And welcome back, everybody, esports fans, to another day of the PCS. Of course, my name is Pyrotechnics, and I'm here sharing the mic with Clement Chu. Clement, it's going to be an exciting day of games. I cannot wait, especially those ones at the end, but a little preview for y'all. Before we get into the action tonight, I would like to take a moment to thank our wonderful sponsors. You can see them down at the bottom of the screen. They are CTBC Bank, China Airlines, and Chunghwa Telecom. Clement, how you doing this fine day?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back here in the PCS, and I like how our league is finally settling into all different sort of tiers. I think PSG, a tier in their own, then we have a very congested sort of second to fifth place, and then you have Impunity, Hong Kong Attitude battling it out, and at the bottom, of course, a bit of Liab and Alpha Esports still trying to find their way.
That they certainly are. Let's take a look at our games to be played today. That's actually yesterday's results, excuse me. As you can see how it all shaked out. We had a bit of a rough one for the Hong Kong Attitude. Weren't able to find a win. Thought they might be able to bounce back after that Megabank Beyond Gaming loss up against Boom Esports. Not to be the case. Meanwhile, J-Team had a pretty solid result against the Berjaya Dragons, and PSG, to I think nobody's surprise, continued on a tear with the convincing win over Liab.
Biggest storyline for me is Boom Esports not missing a beat after dropping their original jungle and Epic. They've been really heading a strong surge at a 4-win streak right now, looking to shake things up and sort of challenge the top 4 that used to exist in spring.
That's true, and those rankings, those particular part of the rankings, I think are probably the most wide open to change. Let's take a look at how they all stack at the moment. PSG Talon up on top with 5 wins and 0 losses, but it does start to get a little messy from there on out. Boom Esports, Beyond Gaming, J-Team all sitting with only a single loss apiece. Machi at 2-2, followed then, of course, by the Berjaya Dragons and Hong Kong Attitude at 2 wins, 3 losses. Impunity have had a bit of a rough start, and they find themselves at 1-4, and Alpha and Liab still yet to find a win, but there are some signs of life as they are on the hunt.
Yeah, we do see Hong Kong Attitude starting to move up a little bit higher. Impunity, a bit surprising, especially for us Singaporean fans. They looked pretty good. They were a 6th place team in spring, but their early game has been rather atrocious so far. So those Impunity would be the team for me that I think has the biggest potential to still move up the roster and kind of shake away these early 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's the team that a lot of people are going to be keeping their eyes on for a while here. I'm really excited to see who is going to start to separate from the pack, especially in those 4-1 teams. But here are going to be today's matches. We're going to kick things off with the battle between Hong Kong Attitude and the Berjaya Dragons, 2-3, both squads. And I feel like that's going to start to set a bit of the tempo for that side of the standings. Then, of course, Alpha Esports versus Boom, Machi versus Liab. Alpha returns again to face Beyond Gaming. And then the final 2 games, those look like they have a lot of potential. Clement, is there one in particular that stands out in your mind?
Well, it's definitely the last game. Has to be a blockbuster. Everyone's trying to guess, when will PSG suffer their first loss? They haven't really had that flawless season just yet. Beyond Gaming were able to take them down in spring, and you know, no king reigns forever. There has to be a challenger, there has to be a usurper, and J-Team could be a very good candidate to finally bring in that L.
Yeah, that's very possible. J-Team have looked pretty solid right now. They did lose their opening day match up against Machi Esports, but were able to shrug that one off and just start stacking up win after win after win. But it's a tall order. PSG Talon are a terrifying team, and I think it's going to be hard for anyone in this league to take them out.
Yeah, I definitely want to see J-Team go for some early action and try to challenge PSG in the early game. They've just been completely untouched with their globals. We see a lot of different attempts in scaling, and none of them have survived even past like the 25-minute point.
Yeah, that's part of the problem when you pick a scaling composition. You need to actually make it to the point where you scale up. And PSG, they're a very smart team. I love the coordination we've seen out of them, and just individually strong. I mean, we talked about how the likes of Hanabi maybe was going to be more traditionally a weak side top laner. Definitely not the case anymore, it seems. But let's talk more about our first matchup tonight. Hong Kong Attitude, their lineup you see on the screen. It will be Rock the top lane, Kongye in the jungle. Hongsuo is back in mid, followed by Eminem and K down on the bottom side. So Clement, a little bit of experimentation with this roster, but they do seem to have settled, at least for now, on this stable 5.
Exactly like you said, this team is running a 7-man roster. They did try out Wen's debut yesterday. Didn't go all so well. Very evident that they had some communication issues right there. And Akei, the veteran, the 25-year-old veteran, all the way from Season 3, still coming back to hem the support starting position. And, we talked about this before a game, but we both thought that Slaytrue had such an amazing performance. We definitely still want to see the youngster back here. But Hong Kong Attitude, they're probably reaching for K for some veterancy, some guidance, and just try to stable the system before they get the youngsters really back.
Oh, we'll see if it works out for them. I think this game is certainly a must-win for the HKA side up against the likes of Berjaya Dragons. They want to start separating out from the pack. We've talked a lot about how drafting has been especially important. And for this team, I feel like the drafts can kind of go up and down and determine a little bit of the pace of the game. And maybe bringing someone that's been there, that's seen all of that into the lineup like K can help stabilize it a little bit. And of course, their opposition, they made some roster changes themselves. It is the Berjaya Dragons. Ozzy in the top lane, Arashi will still be in the jungle, Minji in mid, K2 in the bottom. And of course, their former jungler, Enzo, is on support once again.
Pretty interesting to see this one. Enzo's still going to take the starting spot over Ophelia. Enzo, on his debut, was pretty rough, but they did face J-Team, so maybe we can cut him some slack on that one. A 6-death game with 2 early deaths in the laning phase itself, so he definitely still needs to learn the ropes about this jungle position. But on the bright side, Arashi for us was really a treat to watch. A lot of high mechanical outplays there, and as PSG has noted out, he does have the best headset out of any player in the PCS.
Yeah, Fashion Game is definitely top of the league, and he has some time to make his stats go the same way. But our featured matchup, of course, will be that in the top lane. It is going to be Rock versus Ozzy. And honestly, these two seem fairly evenly matched in most of the stats. The gold difference starts to tilt in the favor of Ozzy, and the damage percentage as well. But Rock has been showing a pretty prominent performance for himself this split.
Yeah, I think Rock and Ozzy has always been sort of highlight matchup between these two teams. We do see that for Ozzy, he does need more scaling. He is the main damage component on his team, so they typically have to give him more of a hyper carry. While I think Rock, because there are more carry options, like Kongyue, like MNM on the team, he gets to play a bit more with going for the early game. However, I think the jungle and top lane synergy isn't there quite yet. We saw a lot of issues with that Lee Sin and Diana combo trying to work out yesterday, and Hong Kong Attitude actually just completely lost the 2v2. So today we really need to see a bounce back between Rock and Kongyue synergy. They need to be calling out wards a lot better. They need to be anticipating rotations, and we expect that out of a caliber team like Hong Kong Attitude.
Yeah, a lot of question marks from that performance, certainly to be answered. For the Berjaya Dragon side, yet to see more from Arashi, and we'll see how well that he's able to slot into this lineup going forward as the picks and bans have started. Nocturne banned out. For those of you joining us and maybe are wondering why that's occupying the ban column, you got to take a look up at the middle top of the screen. We are still on patch 11.13. Xin Zhao going to be banned out along with the Akali, and then of course Viego, Callista, Thresh on the Berjaya Dragon side. That leaves the Gwen first pick up, and it will be locked by HKA.
Gwen so far still 8 wins and only 1 loss. Her highest win rate champion at over 5 picks so far in the PCS. And I love that this is just such a strong takeaway from Ozzy. As we said again, Ozzy needs to be on something scaling. The Viego's already out. If you take away the Gwen, it really limits his pool. Arashi had a great game on Lee Sin before, so looks like Berjaya Dragons are just going to run it back. And it looks like Arashi is extremely happy with the pick.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it for sure. So Berjaya Dragons looking for another pickup. They will need to find something for Ozzy, try and scale up on. But for now, focusing on the bottom side of the map, Enzo will get his hands on the Leona. And it's back over to Hong Kong Attitude.
I believe this is what he played yesterday as well. So
I think you're right.
They're definitely trying to priority pick for him. On Hong Kong Attitude side, this is a little bit of a switch up. Their typical draft has been they want to play Callista in the bottom lane. They want to go super aggro and then reserve Kongyue as a late game carry with the Diana. But this time around, it seems like they're shifting the positions a little bit and going for a configuration that you and me talked about. We actually prefer a lot more, is maybe having Kongyue lead with the early ganks, have a big impact, just start the game off, and then have the rest of the team on other carries. So that seems like a more natural configuration than cutting out Kongyue's impact in the early game. He's such an efficient jungler, and he is their best player, so we definitely want to see his footprint early rather than late. Love this draft from Hong Kong Attitude. On the other side, Berjaya, they want to go for the double lead combo, Lee Sin plus LeBlanc. This is definitely your strongest mid jungle that you can draft so far, and it really serves Minji well to have him on these assassins that he's so known for.
Yeah, Minji's certainly going to be happy with that. So it's kind of comfort picks on the Berjaya side, but Hong Kong Attitude, their draft definitely making better use of Kongye so far, even though we don't know what he's going to play just yet as we enter the second phase of bans. And yeah, you know, Kongye, it's not even close with a lot of the other players on his team. Like, no disrespect there. It's just, he's such a hefty player. Like, he just gets so much done, has insanely high kill participation and damage percentage as a jungler. He's a big carry, and letting him kind of spread the wealth there in other lanes, snowballing is a very viable strategy for this Hong Kong Attitude side. So we'll see if they can pull it off, as we see Set banned away, followed up by the Varus from Hong Kong Attitude, targeting out K2.
Yep. I like the ban of the Varus. Berjaya Dragons is clearly going for tempo composition. They're not really thinking about their late game 5v5. They just want to end the game before 30 and have a massive lead. So definitely Varus the best champion to do that on. And I think what we're looking at is Berjaya holding the very last pick for a counter here and trying to see if that Gwen is going to go anywhere else. Like we said, Hong Kong Attitude, a lot of times they do like Kongyu on hyper carry, so it's still possible that the Gwen might swap out. Berjaya Dragons are just holding on to that to make sure that they get a good matchup for Ozzy in the top side. Hong Kong Attitude, no surprises here. This matchup is 100% win rate for Lissandra so far in the PCS. We're going to see this over and over again.
Oh, wait a minute. At the last second, they switch it up. Okay. I wonder if they wanted to find something that just skirmishes a little better.
I like the idea here because Lissandra is just a pick that, for me, it's very feast or famine. In the late game, you don't really have that much of a toolkit. If you don't burst anyone down, you're kind of useless. So I do like the swap up here. It gives them a lot more tools to play with, especially that global potential. And you can see the 1-3-1 kind of opening up here for Hong Kong Attitude. And indeed, it does look like that Gwen is not going to go into the top lane. Top lane Gwen has been the highest win rate champion slash position, but it does look like we're actually going to get a Gwen jungle and the Camille going to the top lane for Rock.
Yeah, it does set up a really nice 1-3-1, a lot of team fighting potential as well there, so Hong Kong Attitude giving themselves options, and Berjaya Dragons will lock in the Fiora for Ozzy. So Fiora Camille, that's a matchup I haven't seen in a little bit.
Yeah, that's a super fun one. It definitely favors the Fiora a little bit more into the later phases. Her ultimate, the Grand Challenge, is much more of a duelist option than an engage option coming out from the Hextech Ultimatum. Berjaya Dragons, I really like this composition. It has a lot of different dimensions to it. They have a wave clear with the Ziggs, Mega Inferno Bomb. They have an early mid-jungle duo that if, it gets out ahead, then it can just completely dominate the game. And to be honest, Lee Sin plus LeBlanc should just run away with the matchup against something like Ryze and the Gwen. And then in the top lane, you also have a counter matchup. So Berjaya Dragons going from strength to strength to strength, everything fits pretty well together. And I can see that it's not an all-in early game. Even if they fall behind early game, they still have a 4-1 to kind of rely on and still wave clear the mid-4 portion of the map with that. So really well drafted, really fun. On the other side for Hong Kong Attitude, I kind of sense the same sort of issues with their previous drafts. So this is a bit too much late game for me. I don't think any of their lanes really has a say in the early portions of the game. Like, sure, you can make Camille work a little. And you can get a bit of a lead against Fiora early game, but it's not. You can't expect to sustain that, especially when you don't have jungle presence and you're running Gwen. And on the other hand, Ryze, this is traditionally been a favorable matchup against LeBlanc way back in the past when he had that guaranteed root and the Aftershock. But these days, I wouldn't really consider a strong matchup against something like the LeBlanc. So Hong Kong Attitude, if they survive, it's a great comp. Sure, it looks lovely, but you can't really depend on it.
Yeah, and I do wonder what's going to end up happening here for the Hong Kong Attitude. And, it's not just about specific matchups in terms of champions. It's about specific matchups in terms of players. It's one thing to talk about the LeBlanc versus Ryze matchup, Clement, of course, but, we got to talk about the Minji versus Hongso matchup.
Yeah, that's a matchup where I could see Rise really failing quite early on. We do have to point out that Phase Rush was nerfed heavily, so you are missing on 10% movement speed just in the matchup. And in this meta, we have seen a lot of players, especially from the LPL, say that it's all about early ganking. A lot of times, how you play this Lee Sin matchup is you path level 2 directly through the mid lane, and you do red gank level 2 into the enemy red. We have seen that many times just being played out, and I would say that this is a scenario where you could definitely go for that. If you look at the map right now, very clearly, Arashi already going to start for his red, and they have the opponent red warded up too. So
yeah,
they have full vision on where Gwen is going to start. They know that there's no leash coming, and if they get that level 2 red to red, it's so hard to play against that. You just lose your jungle early on. It's very difficult for your Rise to rotate because he's just going to get pushed back in lane. And we also have a good trait to start out for Berjaya. So, that play looks ever more possible right now.
Yeah, it does seem like Berjaya really stacking the deck as much as possible in their own favor, and that's what you got to do up against the Hong Kong Attitude. They kind of put their faith in the hyper carry Kongye. He does a lot of damage. He's able to get it done. Gwen is a champion that can dish out a lot, but you talked about it the last time we saw Jungle Gwen. There's not any CC there. It's a fast camp clear, which means you can get into people's faces, but you're really relying on your lanes to set up these ganks, and I'm wondering if that's going to be as feasible for HKA as this comp makes it seem like.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those comps where you're just relying on the quality and the caliber of player to take you through. Hong Kong Attitude, this draft, I think it's a pretty confident draft. What they're saying is essentially that, hey, Berjaya Dragons, they are going to make mistakes. They're not going to be able to snowball from start to finish. We're going to have some breathing room to get our composition online. I don't think this is how you would draft against someone like PSG. Probably not how you draft against Machi. But against Berjaya, there is some reason to go with a very greedy draft like this one and just hope that you make it into the late game with just far more firepower and carry potential than the opponent comp can offer.
It's a lot of confidence for a team that went 0-2 yesterday, too. So, I suppose props for not going mental boom.
For sure. We are seeing Hongso actually win out this matchup quite heavily.
Yeah, that was pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice shove, and we do have to point out that Hongso did go for a rather lane-dominant opening here, going for the corrupting pots rather than, either the mana potion, the sapphire crystal that we sometimes see Rise go for early tier. This is actually a build where he does want to secure things, and Arashi, surprisingly enough, doesn't actually get the bot side scuttle here. So the mid lane, because of how poorly the trades have gone, he does have to relinquish the first scuttle over to Kongryea, but the gank's coming.
Yep, looking for it right now. They did get a quick stop up as Arashi tries to land the Sonic Wave, dodged out. M&M and K knew something was up, and they were able to get out of harm's way.
Yep, just pretty well done by Hong Kong Attitude. I love Arashi still tries the gank anyway. You can sneak past vision on Lee Sin quite easily, even if the opponent does have the scuttle. Sometimes you can catch enemy bottom lanes just sort of napping on the fact that they think they have extra vision, but actually it doesn't really work out that well for them. In the meantime, I do also want to point out Ozzy's build right here. He is going to go for the Conqueror's build, a much more sustained damage build. It is a little bit weaker early level compared to something like the Grasp, just by the way you trade on the Fiora. Early levels, you're not really all-inning, you're just kind of poking around with your Q. So we should expect this build to be a lot stronger later portions of the game, probably post 6. That's where you're going to see Ozzy really start to pop off. Early levels, Camille definitely still much stronger of a champion. Her passive, really, I feel like her passive is just incredibly busted. It feels like 1.5 abilities when you have that big of a shield on you.
Yeah, Camille is definitely a hard champion to trade into at the best of times. Oh, Hongso, little cheeky overload to stop the back of Minji. And this Rise is just straight up bullying the LeBlanc at the moment. So, you talked about it being an old favored one, not so certain these days, but Hongso so far is making this work, and we have some lane push coming at least 2 out of 3 lanes from Hong Kong Attitude. My question for you, Clement, is Where and when does Kongye start to go, right? Because this is a champion that should be able to hit 6 before Arashi can do it on the Lee Sin, especially the way he's farming right now. But does he use that advantage to start hitting the lanes? And we'll answer that in a minute as Enzo and Kay find each other in the mid lane. Arashi is here. Kongye tags his way in, and it's a full-on party for first blood. Arashi burning, and it will go the way of Kay as Hongso just barely gets out of harm's way. And got to be careful not to walk too far forward there. Good miss down for the Gwen, but Kongye still incredibly low. Tries to stay long enough. Oh my goodness, Kay tagging his way back in. Enzo getting the kill onto Hongso, and that was oh so close.
Yeah, a little bit of a head scratcher at the back end of that one. Hongso could have backed out and just survived. Tries to greed for the kill and ends up trading one back. So we'll watch this again. Berjaya get the position first, and they get the rotational advantage too. Hongso is a little bit caught out right here because he thinks his support might be coming in first. That's not the case. Arashi, he goes in a little bit too hard on that one. Hongso, with the potions running, is able to survive. But on the back end, I definitely feel like he walks up a little bit too far. After this, it should be Hong Kong Attitude with the full disengage. Kay goes in. Hongso walks into melee range against Enzo and just signs a death warrant for himself. That was a little bit weird mechanically to see that just panning out the way it did. He definitely could have kept his distance a little bit better, but you know, props to Berjaya. It was messy. It felt like it failed from the start, but they claw one back.
Yeah, managing to get one kill, whether or not it was kind of gifted to you, is really beyond the point. Still a very even game in terms of gold, and both teams just kind of felt like had the same idea at the same time, and we're just surprised to find each other in the mid lane. My question kind of answered itself, because Kongye showed up there pretty quickly, but it was in response to Arashi showing up in mid.
Yep, we do have to notice that Kongye does not have the flash, as we have seen a couple times before. Usually the jungle Gwen does go for the Ghost to have that extra teamfight impact to get to the back line. She's not as tanky as the top lane Gwen, so she does need that extended gap closing ability with the Ghost. And this is something that we do have to pay pretty close attention to. This does mean that she's actually very vulnerable to Arashi just unloading on her, especially with Minji. We'll see if Berjaya Dragons can make use of that fact. And on the other hand, you know, I think both of these teams, they're playing with a very close tempo, and it does look like both of them will be looking forward towards this Herald. Kongye going there already.
Yeah, Arashi critically getting that ward down in front, so he will see if it gets started up. For the time being, everyone pretty much locked in the lanes apart from those junglers and Hongso. It seems like when there's nobody else here, he's perfectly fine up against this LeBlanc. I wonder how much more time that's going to be now that Minji does have, well, he's past 6, he's at 7 at this point, still waiting on some damage. And in the bottom side, Eminem actually putting some huge hurt onto the turret plates as Kongye comes up towards the top side. Ozzy sees that and walks away.
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful from Ozzy. Definitely reads the gank very well. Now Arashi is standing on a couple of wards, but in comes the support. It's a much earlier roam coming on the side for Berjaya. They're going to be able to start this one. It doesn't look like Hongso is in any position to challenge. Would have to burn his Realm Warp in order to get into the fight.
Yeah, inside tack there from Berjaya Dragons to get onto this Herald. Happens in plain sight, and there's not really an easy way for anyone to answer this. It does seem like Hong Kong Attitude are interested. They do move in. That's going to be immediately the turn onto the Gwen. Do they have the damage? Arashi taken low, but Minji finishes off Kongye before it could happen. So they take the Herald and the kill.
And as we said, Gwen does not have a flash, so very easy to focus down right here. I love how hard Berjaya Dragons were willing to go in for that play. Usually focusing a Gwen is bad for your health. But in this situation, when you have the Grand Challenge healing up your whole team afterwards, they were willing to go ham, even knowing that Kay was likely on the play as well.
Yeah, I love that Kongye is like, oh, that's fine, I got my mist. And then everyone's like, well, we're in melee range, so you're dead. Unfortunate for the Gwen, goes down in that one, and Berjaya Dragons picking up a little bit of an advantage. The gold hasn't really changed, but as we get closer to that 10-minute mark, that could be changing pretty quickly with that Rift Herald, depending on where Berjaya decide to drop it.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit curious as why Hongso actually lost the push after that play. I wasn't paying very close attention to the backs. Maybe he came back to lane late, but throughout the entire matchup, he's actually had shove. But on that particular play, he was pushed back to his own tower, which meant that, you know, they gave up way too much river vision to be able to contest that Herald. A little bit of a head scratcher right there. Maybe we'll get a replay onto that one. But for the time being, I think we're going to have a pretty chill game. And for Berjaya, I think the best play that they can do with this Herald is definitely just drop it top. That's kind of their biggest win condition, just to get Ozzy into that 4-1 position where he has that Ravenous Hydra to just outduel Camille. I think that's probably the go-to play. But in the meantime, it looks like both sides are you know, taking this rather slow, and Arashi not even going to think about challenging. They're just going to go straight top lane and further Ozzy's lead.
Yeah, a little bit of a push and pull. It's one of those kind of smooth games, and we're so used to having these really scrappy, crazy ones. But sometimes in the early game, both teams agree to just play it out a little easier, I suppose, which means we can kick back and relax, you know?
Yeah, I love Berjaya's play right here. I think it's definitely worthwhile if you can snowball a kill, but they're caught.
Might be able to do it. Oh, and Arashi is not getting out of there. Great use of the Hextech ultimatum from Rock. Helps to secure up Berjaya's new jungler. Oh boy.
The play was smart, but the execution was definitely a bit iffy right there. I don't think Berjaya had a good count on the members. However, Minji's going in.
Yeah, Hongsuo thought he had the 1v1, and he's going to try to two-step out for the Realm Warp. Does manage to get away as Ozzy was there. Oh, talk about holding your nerve.
Really close kill right there. Berjaya Dragons, the pincer towards the top lane was fine, but they didn't expect themselves to run into a 2v3. They get instantly bursted out. A really strong win for Hong Kong Attitude, and it just means that their rotation for the Drake was completely free.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that we didn't really talk about all that much in the pick and ban was just the sheer amount of mobility on this Hong Kong Attitude side. I mean, you've got Kongye's Gwen boosted up by that Ghost, as we have seen in the jungle iteration. Hongsuo with the teleport and the Rise ultimate to get around the map, in that case, for retreat. And everybody else, except maybe the Aphelios, can kind of just go fast when they want to.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of counter-engage potential on this one. They can play with ranges and going in and out, just wasting cooldowns. With the Hextech Ultimatum, with the Mist, there's a lot of different abilities that they can break focus damage coming in the side for Berjaya Dragons. So Hong Kong Attitude, if you look at this late game, this is essentially a 4-carry composition, and then you have a great CC machine in K. Incredibly good scaling comp. For Berjaya, I feel like they need to continue to get ahead right here, and Rock is the target.
Yeah, going to be popping the Rift Herald down, and Rock just says, nope, I do not want any of that, as it looks like the entire team's decided to take a trip to Scenic bot lane, or top lane, I should say.
Yeah, I love this play coming in from Berjaya. This is one of those things that a lot of times you're going to forget if you don't play against the Ziggs for a while. You just completely miss out on the fact that he has one of the best trades. He can trade cross map with his Inferno Mega Bomb, so you can actually rotate the mid lane to help on other sides of the map. And then he has a Satchel Charge, which guarantees a faster turret trade. And in this scenario, they even have the Herald backing that up. So Berjaya Dragons trade 2 towers for nothing on the bottom side. Well done.
That was great. I mean, I loved what they were doing to shepherd Shelly down there, and if there wasn't a faster response from Hong Kong Attitude, that might have actually been a triple charge.
Yeah, that's insane. And in the meantime, Ozzy still gets to pick up the wave bot lane. He's actually farming against nothing right here. So that's just such a cool move being played by Berjaya Dragons. They forced 3 members to rotate towards the top lane, and you can see on the gold graph right there, that was a 2,000 gold swing in Berjaya's favor.
Yeah, great move for the team that really wants to try and speed things up a little bit in this game. And now the map is a little more open, at least towards the top side. Berjaya Dragons on the way out. Look at the vision that they were able to establish for themselves. Hong Kong Attitude have to be a little careful here. Now Minji facing off against Rock, who doesn't have the same ability to duel out against him as he did against Hongsuo. But actually, that was a lot of damage unanswered.
Doesn't have the sustain, didn't expect to walk into the LeBlanc like that one. Well done on this, and Berjaya Dragons are continuing with the topside trade. I love how the double tower take ends up sequencing directly into the second Herald. This is just a beautiful chain of events, and they're really willing to just trade off Drakes at this point. You know, if you're up against Hong Kong Attitude's composition, you're not going to win late game anyway. Like, if it goes to 35 minutes, Hong Kong Attitude just win automatically. So trading these early Drakes, which is essentially late game power, for immediate gold is very, very favorable for Berjaya. This macro has just been an absolute clinic. I honestly didn't expect Berjaya Dragons to have this level of planning and forethought coming into this one.
Yeah, they've definitely showcased a very, very good communicative style that I think is beyond what we've seen from them so far in summer. And also are just holding the line everywhere they need to be. I mean, Ozzy's doing exactly what he needs to. K2's doing Zig's thing in the mid lane and just holding this turret. The Dragon timer is going to come up, and because of positioning, that should be Hong Kong Attitudes. But I don't think Berjaya are going to be too worried about that, not until it gets to Soul Point. And, well, when it gets to Soul Point, that's kind of when they start getting a little worried about that 35-minute mark where Hong Kong Attitude just kind of scale out of control anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you're going to...
Oh, there's the quickness. On to 3 members right now. Do they have the fight? They're looking for it as both K and K2 going golden, and Berjaya Dragons starting to get very low on the health bars here. They did not want to take this fight. Try for the disengage. It's a 1 for none. And Minji back over the side, mega Inferno Bomb there. Rock's going to be forced to retreat. Berjaya, that could have been a lot worse for the collapse.
Really well played by Hong Kong Attitude. They get Enso right off the bat. And if you look at that fight, Arashi was trying to get the kickback onto multiple members. He gets stunned in place by the Everfrost, rooted, excuse me, and he just dies for nothing. Like, doesn't even get anything off. They also get Ozzy to use the teleport here. So just a really good punish onto Berjaya. I felt like Berjaya's thought pattern right there was, okay, they just did the Drake. They're probably going to go and reset. We have an opportunity to just go on this mid tower, but they didn't ward properly on the right side, and Hong Kong Attitude punished them for it.
Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude definitely not afraid to scrap with this team. You know, we talked about how they have some insane carries, how they want to get to that late game point where they're just going to be very, very difficult to deal with. But that doesn't mean they can't fight earlier. That doesn't mean they can't still get in the faces of Berjaya Dragons, and we saw it on display there. Arashi having a little bit of a rougher time than I think we saw yesterday in his debut, at least from the score lines telling. I did like what he was doing early on in that Lee Sin, but he's not been able to find a whole lot in these 5v5s and these skirmishes.
This Ryzen teamfights is actually just doing so much work. It's preventing Minji from getting a good angle onto Eminem, and we've seen already Arashi's finding it very difficult to get past someone who has Rune Prison and Everfrost. Like, he needs like a very big angle flank. He needs to come from essentially behind the enemy team to do what he wants to do, or else Hongso is just going to catch him red-handed and stop him in his tracks. So it looks like Berjaya for now, they still need to find some tempo, and the worrying thing about me about this comp for now is Ozzy is actually just not accelerated against Rock. Rock actually does get a bit more of the CS lead at this point. He has an extra assist, and if you can't split targets apart here, it's going to be very difficult to then find picks with the LeBlanc and Lee Sin.
Well, they're going to look for something here as a Solar Flare lands on Decay. A Mega Inferno Bomb will finish the job. The Rakan cannot dash out fast enough, and Hongso looking for a little bit of revenge, but they throw some bouncing bombs. K really doing a great job to cover the rest of his team's escape. I've been very impressed by his Ziggs performance so far.
Yeah, well done there, K2. Better than K, you know, you're double the amount right there.
Exactly, it's multiplicative.
Exactly. That was a bit of a head scratcher from K. He just had his jungle show in the bottom side. I don't think he should have went in that early. Pays a pretty heavy price for it, and the Herald gets the full charge plus mid lane tower. So definitely not something that should have happened there. If you look at the Baron timers, it's still 30 seconds off. They definitely could have waited for the full team to rotate there before going for vision, and that's kind of just a free give me coming in from Hong Kong Attitude.
And there just have been a lot of these little trades back and forth. It does mean that the gold game stays pretty darn close, all things considered. And it feels like the way these teams get advantages is very distinct, though, right? Like, Berjaya Dragons are setting up this big plan. They're making the play. It's a good macro play. And then Hong Kong Attitude basically just find a fight, or they end up fighting one of themselves caught out. Like, it's very scrappy the way this play is happening, but it's not like it's by design.
I'd say Hong Kong Attitude so far has done really well, considering that they want to go a bit later Kongyue gonna go in but miss both needleworks here, and he finds himself behind enemy lines.
Yeah, they might have a hard time getting out there. Arashi ran straight up, but there's a little too many members of Hong Kong Attitude for him to want to take on, and dive does get stopped. It's a little hard to dive a LeBlanc, in all honesty.
Yeah, I felt like Minji actually played that extremely well, too. And we have more plays. Oh, the bait.
Solar Flare. Yeah, they don't think he expected two on top of him right there, as Ozzy will get a kill. It's going to help pat his pocket a bit.
Yeah, that was a 3-man show onto the top lane. Actually, a 4-man show from Hong Kong Attitude. So bot lane Rock just gets caught red-handed. That place is very well warded. Good job on Enso for getting that done. Knows that there's no opposition since everyone is on the top side. And I do want to go back to that play in the top. Minji actually burned 2 summoners without even using his own flash. He dodged out on Hongso. Hongso flashed forward to try to get the Everfrost. Misses. And then Minji dodges back on the needlework from Kongyue, so burns his ghost in the meantime as well. Just really well done, you know. Minji has done this, I believe in week 1, day 1, we had the exact same chain of events where Minji just dodges out on some incredible gank, forces everything from the enemy team, and Berjaya Dragon win a team fight afterwards.
Ah, he's got good mechanics, that Minji. All right, they will be able to pick up an Infernal Drake as well, which will start to stall out a little bit for Hong Kong Attitude's Dragon takes. In the meantime, it does seem like it's just a number of these small mechanical mistakes that is costing Hong Kong Attitude. But they do have late game to look forward to. Berjaya Dragon's a little bit more on a timer here as Minji goes in to try and clear out the wave. Hongso trying to bait a little bit here as you see K and Kongyue have arrived. Arashi, that is a clutch ward, my friend. And now Minji knows he's got to get out of there. Double distort. There's the knockup on the grand entrance. And Arashi is out. Meanwhile, Hongso actually comes to the party with the Realm Warp a little bit late. Mega Inferno Bomb lands on nothing. That was a lot of ultimates expended, and they just end up getting the tower clear.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like that play from Hong Kong Attitude. I felt like they could have gotten the tower without using the Realm Warp, without using the quickness. And what this means is it really allows Berjaya Dragons to then reestablish Vision over Baron. Because the enemy team is clearly missing a ton of ultimates, 3 ultimates to be exact. And, you know, it's a great way to just swoop away those extra pink wards, get all the gold that Hong Kong Attitude expended. So it just seems to me that K's forcing a little bit harder than he really needs to at this point, and they can definitely conserve those ultimates for more crucial moments, or just to use them to hold on to Vision, to buffer Berjaya Dragons for trying to face check.
Yeah, a little trigger happy. And I don't think it's just K either, right? Like, Hongso didn't need to come in there on the Realm Warp, and I think by the time he'd actually started it, it was already kind of apparent that that there was actually some help up in the top side. I mean, yes, they get the tower, but yeah, such a heavy investment of ultimates. And Berjaya are a team that are able to take advantage of that. They are playing very well this game. You know, mistakes and positioning errors aside, I kind of feel like, you know, it's weird to say, Clement, I feel like these two teams are like very evenly matched.
They definitely feel like it, and you know, now I'm looking at the composition. It's also possible that Berjaya Dragons will be able to weather the late game storm with just some sort of a pick. As we have said, Ozzy does get a superior pushing power in those side lanes afterwards, and this is a really smart play from Berjaya. They don't actually have time to full clear the river, but they're willing to stay in this Death Brush to try to find a pick. Good play on Hong Kong Attitude to sniff that one out as well. But honestly, if Hong Kong Attitude didn't expend most of their ultimates there, they should have been able to clear this entire side of Vision. They're still going to get a pick onto Enzo, though.
Yeah, Enzo is a little tanky. He was able to flash away after the CC had evaporated. Oh, and the needlework doesn't connect for Kongyue. Oh boy, that's when he starts turning a 180.
Yeah, wouldn't have killed Enzo either way, but as we could see in this team fight here, Eminem actually taking a lot of damage coming in from K2. You can't really have these situations where he's trying to walk up fully. Now I look at the composition, it's actually a pretty easy comp for K2 to just dish out damage. Neither Aphelios or Rise has that much mobility coming in from the back line. They do have to walk up into the minefield a lot of times to get damage. So K2 is going to have a pretty easy field day. And I think it still would serve Hong Kong Attitude best if they can get a quick pick onto a target other than Enzo. I really think K should be trying to focus a little bit more onto K2. K2, a lot of times, he's just going to be sitting mid and trying to full shove. So if they can clear one side of the mid lane, brushes, it should open themselves up to a lot of different opportunities to get this pick on Ziggs.
Absolutely the case, and K has been unafraid to get up in people's faces, and there's Minji. Oh my goodness, Eminem. That is a lot of bursts coming out from Minji's LeBlanc on that one. Stays alive, though.
Good thing the Infernal Mega Bomb was just used earlier, so they didn't get the full damage through. But K2, even going the more consistent Leandri's Anguish build, still able to put down a lot of hurt onto Eminem. And I think it's quite clever. This is kind of the standard build these days, but Eminem, of course, does have the Immortal Shield Bow, so he will be able to heal back up to full whenever Berjaya Dragons don't get the full kill.
All about that sustain. Berjaya have a lot of burst potential, and a couple of their players at the moment, but not enough to really 100-0 anybody. And now with 10 seconds until the next dragging spawning, I think we might actually see a fight over that objective for the first time today. It really has just been a lot of trades back and forth. And Hong Kong Attitude controlling the area around the pit, but not all of the vision.
And they also have Hongso with the shove right here. The pick is coming in.
Two-man quickness looking for the finisher. They do turn on to Enzo. He goes gold for just a second as K2 pops out of his own Mega Inferno Bomb to defer and deter. That is just enough for them to escape. I cannot believe Hong Kong Attitude couldn't find a kill, but they should get the dragon secured.
They do get a lot of summoners, though, especially from K2. The flash burn down, and that was a move where I felt like Berjaya Dragons, if they really wanted to contest, their only avenue was to find a quick pick somewhere. They needed to chunk out Eminem. They needed to get vision over River. It was just a bit too many tasks that they had to deal with in order to fight that one. And when you're that far behind in terms of vision, I feel like you just kind of throw out the Infernal Bomb and just see if you hit. If not, you just kind of back out for that one. But luckily for them, they don't actually pay much of a price for that.
Yeah. On the other hand, Hong Kong Attitude do pick up an Infernal to match, and oh no, K runs face first into Arachi and Enzo and gets popped before the cavalry can arrive. And they are out. Man, that's the second time K is face checked in that exact same brush.
Yeah, that's pretty much the K cemetery here. Twice in a row, just face checks into that one and dies. He's not tanky as this Rakan is going for the Shurelya's build, so a much more aggressive offensive build, and that's kind of a weird thing to see coming out here. You do have blue trinkets on your mid lane, so definitely could have waited there. There was no chance that Berjaya was going to start Baron in that situation. I do wish that the veteran in K can show some of that experience and play a little bit cleaner here.
Maybe he's a bit rusty. I don't know. I mean, it does start to throw into question a little bit. We talked about how Slaytrue, he had an insane pop-off game on Thresh before that swap out happened. So,
oh no, do we have round 3?
Is it
happening?
Okay, he puts the controller down. I'm fine. Wait a second, where'd they all come from? K2 with the finisher onto K, and that is 0 for 3 for the Rakan. Oh, no.
What is so baffling to me is that they know Berjaya Dragons are not on Baron. They have double blue trinkets on both of their carries. So it feels kind of like a waste for me to face check at this moment. What I think the correct play is you just continue to push mid. You only go into that Baron pit when you know they've started it, and you still have. You still have blues for that. So we'll see if Berjaya Dragons can now get them off.
Looking for the steal here comes Rock, looking for Enzo, and they turn into the pit on the back of the fight. Eminem's going to start by taking out the support on the opposite team, and the Gwen is popping off, steals the Baron away, and they just melt the rest of Berjaya Dragons. A triple kill for Eminem on the back, and that was a collapse.
I guess none of the early game actually mattered right there. That was a game-winning play for sure. Eminem comes in with the Infernum at the exact right moment and just burns everyone to a crisp. They were all concentrated in that one pit. No one was looking at Gwen. She's able to pop off with the magic damage and the MR shred coming in from the Baron, and then Eminem seals off the entire deal with the play coming in from the Baron pit. A closure right there. So this is a beautiful play, and Berjaya, unfortunately for them, they're just not able to burst this down quick enough for this play to really be worthwhile.
Yeah, Arashi's not even there until this happens, and Rock turns on to Enzo. I do like what they tried to do to turn on, but then Kongya just says, surprise, I have a stopwatch. As soon as he comes out of it, they get the Smite Steal down, and then Eminem just reminding everybody that Aphelios is a champion who does a lot of damage.
And we call that the hot pot play in the LPL, where you have everyone cornered into a small location and then you just unleash the Moonlight Vigil on everyone. That was a 4-man spread on the ultimate, and Hongso also got a very beautiful 2-man Everfrost route as Berjaya Dragons were trying to retreat. And if you look at the gold lead, that one play, the Ace plus Baron and mid,
blows it open.
2 towers there.
See, that's why I thought it was the hot pot play, Clement, because everything is close and even, and you're like, this is fine, and then, oh god, it burns. That's just the Heidi Lau, though.
Yeah, Heidi Lau, the number one thing I miss from Shanghai. Enzo's probably going to be missing his life after this play as well, though.
He might be, yeah. A lot of burst comes through, and Eminem firing down for the finisher. Minji forced to take the blast cone over the wall. And, yeah, now it just seems like cleanup duty for the Hong Kong Attitude. Ozzy's trying to cut the legs off this wave in the mid lane, but I don't think HKA care.
He's also taking his sweet time trying to get through that super minion.
The crap face emote is the real cherry on top, though.
He knows he's in trouble. He's not really doing much in stopping this wave anyhow, and you can see that there still are a couple of minions there from Rock. Okay, now they go down finally, but Hong Kong Attitude completely unperturbed. This is an 8,600 gold Baron buff play. This is the
Yep.
What was that team in NA where, you know, everyone was saying that, oh, it was Coast. This is the team Coast play.
Yeah, they're losing until they win, or winning until they lose.
Yeah.
The old Skara quote, for sure. My goodness. Yeah, Berjaya Dragons, you know, it looked so close. It looked so smooth. A couple of mistakes, but that Baron, they didn't shred it fast enough. Arashi wasn't even in the pit for most of the take. And honestly, I wanna give some credit to Kongye here, because that was a hero play to go in, bait himself, and maybe he lucked out on the timing, but it seemed like the moment he came out of stasis, insta smite, gets the steal, and Eminem just opens house. So it does seem like there's not a whole lot.
Oh, I think I lost
Dragons to do.
For a second.
Oh, did you lose me? There we go.
Yeah, I lost you for a second. Sorry.
No worries.
You know, it's just a very sweet cleanup kill, and it also shows like the sort of inexperience from Arashi. The Lee Sin play, trying to zone off from on the enemy blue, didn't really make much sense to me. You see 3 members from Hong Kong Attitude actually just pushing the mid lane, so he completely misjudged where the enemy team would be coming from. Wasn't able to get the extra quick kick onto Gwen early, and also didn't DPS the Baron. So that was just kind of a head scratcher, but that's, you know, you live and you learn, definitely, for sure. And I have to commend Hong Kong Attitude for really reading Berjaya very well. They went with a full 4 carry late game composition, and they made the right gambit. Indeed, Berjaya Dragon was going to make some sort of mistake in the mid game to allow them to run this composition.
Yeah, now they're going to try to close this one, and would be a big relief here for Hong Kong Attitude after yesterday's 0-2 performance. They will be able to melt through most of the health bars of the Berjaya Dragons. Arashi, Minji, still up and available, and so is Ozzy, but can they stop the onslaught? K does go down, but I don't think Hong Kong Attitude mind. They've seen that a couple of times already today. Nexus turns getting fired down, and so is Ozzy, and with that, should be the end of the game right here. Nexus going to fall at 34.5 minutes, and Hong Kong Attitude roaring back.
Great comeback from them. Hong Kong Attitude finally find their 2nd win overall, and it does seem like Hongsuo will be starting over Wen for the foreseeable future. After this game, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. K's still a little bit rusty, but, you know, that's as a support, sometimes you got to face check. And Hong Kong Attitude, I think they have found how they want to dial their compositions. In the past, everyone else was early game, only Kongrye was late game. But against sort of the bottom half of the league, I think a lot of times you can actually just get away with going full scaling. Hong Kong Attitude,
Right.
they have a bunch of great players. In terms of raw roster strength, they're definitely one of the top 5 teams in the PCS. So I think they can do this against basically from 6 to 10. Everyone else, they can kind of just run this sort of a composition and rely on the fact that their laning strength is just going to get better. Is just going to be better than the opposition, and it's going to allow them to play a 35-minute game.
Yeah, and honestly, if you could do that, this is a league where top 8 will go into the playoffs. You have plenty of time to try to improve and refine your strategy against some of those more competitive teams. And I think for Hong Kong Attitude, especially after yesterday, this is a big relief to get this win here. And it seemed like it was so even. It was so close for very long. But I really like the mechanical performances out of Hong Kong Attitude. Yeah, there's still definitely a few things to work out. K, I mean, maybe either he needs to stop face checking, or maybe they just need to put him on like a big old potato tank. His recon did set up a lot of big plays, though. I think some of those quicknesses were really nice to see. It enabled a lot of good fights. And I think you absolutely nailed it. Hongsuo really had some great Rise play, especially up against Minji's LeBlanc, which is not an easy thing to do. Lane bullying out that champion a number of times, and the Realm Warps. A little bit of trickery on his own side, razzle dazzle, like when he was trying to bait Berjaya Dragons earlier on and kind of made them second guess themselves in the Baron Pit before that big turnaround.
Yeah, a lot of great things coming in from Hongsuo, especially the laning phase itself was somewhat unexpected. On the flip side, though, I feel like Arashi, they could have ran away with this early game. They had a lot of sweet macro plays, but there was 2 points I felt like they didn't really try to push hard enough. The first one was the first Scuttle rotation, where he was on the red buff, red start, and when you're Lee Sin on a red start against Gwen and Rise, you really should be securing that first Scuttle. They didn't make that happen. And then the Dragon trade for the top lane where Arashi just ran into 3-man and died. That was another huge missed opportunity. So I felt like Berjaya Dragons, this game was definitely winnable. If they just fixed some of the early mistakes coming in from Arashi, I felt like they could have snowballed far, far harder. And Hong Kong Attitude should not have been able to get an even footing coming into the mid game.
Yeah, that's really where it started to go sideways for them. How do you think of Enzo on support 2 games in now? That Leona definitely had some good setups on individual plays, just not so much in the team fighting, it seemed.
Oh, a lot better performance than his day 1 debut against J-Team. This time around, I felt like there was less for him to do, though, to be absolutely honest. His job was basically to hang around the Ziggs and make sure mid lane was pushed. So I think it's a wait and see for me, but congratulations to Hongsuo, the rookie coming back 4-1-5. 27% of his team's damage was incredibly high for something like a Rise these days. And at the end, he just outscaled incredibly hard. 5,500 gold over Minji's LeBlanc.
Yeah.
Didn't allow the LeBlanc to snowball whatsoever.
Yeah, that was, honestly, it was a really nice performance to see. I mean, there were maybe a handful of moments where I was kind of like, oh, okay. But none of them really happened in lane. None of them really happened up against Minji. And where, I'm used to the big party portals from Rises, the back in the day plays, where you really are just like doing insane things with that ultimate teleport. But he used it really effectively as a solo player, and also just setting up a lot with the machine gun kind of damage that Rise can dish out on those overlords. So, overlords, I should say. So really good play from him. Good play from Hong Kong Attitude all around. Now we are going to take a short break. When we return, more of the PCS, so don't go anywhere.